on there, you're on there, you're on there, you're on there, No, oh my God, it's really upside down. Oh my God, no.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're coming back for the second half. And as you might know, we have the last word, Alan Harris, but the last word in a new feature kind of situation. He opens the second half and closes it. So give Alan Harris a round of applause to come here to open the second half. Alan Harris! Muggy. Oh, wait a minute. Help him out here. There he is. We zoomed in on you, Alan. Alan,
Alan, I'll hear you Saturday night at La Promenade.
Yeah, I'm going to be there.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't stay, but La Promenade this Saturday night, 7 o'clock. You're the feature.
I'm one of the features at La Promenade on Saturday night at 7 o'clock.
And I'll be there, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! So will he.
This is from my book. Dear Mr. Harris, our records indicate that your account is now 60 days past due. Our records also indicate that you have ignored our repeated requests to bring your account up to date. Now, Mr. Harris, you may see us as a huge and faceless corporation which provides services to millions of people, and you may think that as long as the majority of these people pay their bills on time and in full, that a handful of people such as yourself, Mr. Harris, can just slide, ignoring the contractual obligations you have made to our company. But let us assure you, Mr. Harris, that while we are indeed a huge corporation, we are anything but faceless. In fact, we employ thousands of faces which belong to people whose lives, nay, whose very existences, depend on you honoring your commitment to us. People like Director of Personnel Jack Stevens, who has a wife and 4 children and 2 mortgages and a summer home in the Hamptons and a 40-foot sailboat, which is, incidentally, his only means of communing with nature, an environment which, in the highly pressurized and completely dehumanizing hustle and bustle of daily urban life, is all that stands between him and complete and utter madness. People like Customer Service Representative Rose Fernandez, single mother and sole means of support for bright-eyed and delightful little 14-month-old Michael Fernandez, whose young life is in your hands, Mr. Harris. For you see, Mr. Harris, when you entered into a contractual obligation with our company, not only did you make a commitment to a corporate entity, but you also took partial responsibility for the lives of fellow human beings. In short, Mr. Harris, we are not just an institution of huge proportions and vast holdings. We are America. And if you feel that it is unnecessary for you to honor your commitment to America, well then why don't you just move to China? Yeah, that's it. Why don't you just move to China, Mr. Harris? And then, maybe after you've had a taste of how the Chinese deal with people who refuse to conform, who refuse to toe the party line, who refuse to contribute to the greater good, maybe after you've spent a decade rotting in a Chinese prison, completely isolated, starved nearly to death, and forgotten by anyone who has ever known you, well then maybe you'll appreciate how little we asked of you. But don't get us wrong, Mr. Harris. This has gone far beyond us simply interrupting your service or reporting you to a credit agency like Experian. Oh no. We have plans for you, Mr. Harris. For you see, Mr. Harris, as we are an institution of huge proportions and vast holdings, we can affect your life in ways that you could never even imagine. And in case you think we're bluffing, bear in mind that Princess Diana didn't pay her bill either. Traffic accident our ass, Mr. Harris! In short, Mr. Harris, if you fuck with us, you get burned. If you have any questions regarding this letter, please contact our accounting department. And may you rot in hell.
Now he's going to come back and close the second half.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Alan Harris of Aaron Harris, the Six This Is. And now we have Bob Gordon coming up here. Give him a nice round as he comes up. There we go.
I'm going to read 4 poems. The first one is an older poem. I wrote it as a prayer. called Let Us Live. Where the sun rises and sets, where the rock sweats the dewdrops into April air, where Allah is the name of God, where the pond is sipped with cadmium lips, where Hebrew Negroes tear to glimpse mica chips blinding, children where the cistern sits, giving birth to samovar. Oh, let us dwell in the sand-swept wind, coming to peace with the prayer of sea and holy book. Ooh, and to worship Elohim when Buddha dreams. Oh, oh, let us live. This, on the other hand, is my most recent poem. It comes out of my relationship with my roommate, who is Iranian Kurdish, actually. And I, as a Jew, am actually more of a Zionist than a Jew, and we live together. And this came out of our relationship for me. It's called Wanted and Not Wanted. I grew a garden on my terrace. I named it after you, my love. And now the flowers cry, shall we die here in midwinter? I grew some flowers on my terrace. Now it's named after you. And we cry, shall we die too? There grows a garden on my terrace. Its name is after you. And now we cry, shall they die too? The silence of the garden's yours, the flowers live here too. And now we cry, shall they die too? And that's between us two. This poem, you have to now understand that I live in Soma, which is the center of the drug problem. And the title is There Is No Interest in the Blacks, or whatever interest there is no place. The title. Deaf, dumb, and blind is no excuse for not seeing. Genealogy is not a matter of expression. Oh, cry, cry, cry to the sublimation of outspeaking. Oh, sigh, 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 for the never spoken will soon outspeak. Oh, you do this to me as doing this to me, chosen from how choice is given. Resist is how to listen. To speak, to resist is object. Tone is influential and can be smart enough to intelligence if objection is not taken. Ipso facto, lead carefully, that is with care. Who is to understand words and music like techno in the lurch? And this, I was inspired to think I was going away this weekend, and I wrote this poem. I don't know if I have it. It's called Flagging Far Away. There's colors on the flag here. Take them away. The people pray. Why do the people pray, dear, when they are away? To bring the colors back, dear. What do you say? What do you say? Will they come back, dear? Let them stay. Let them stay. And this last one is my Halloween poem. It's called Halloween's Eve, the man who loved to be a conductor. Wild, I hear. Wild, I hear. You don't know. What wild? What wild? I hear what? Wild. That man. Yes, and so who is that? That man, not Batman. Superman. Now who are you? The girl in the dress. And it may be you. Ooh. Boo.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. And now, lest you think strange things happen here, which they do, but when the person who's the keynote gets up and reads, the person who's the keynote reads a poem by someone else, and now our keynote is going to read something of her. Melissa Mello, would you kindly take a brand voice. This is brand new.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. All right.
So, thankfully for this theme, most of my poems are achy, so we're good.
Good.
What'd you say?
Is the mic weird?
It's a little loud.
Oh, I can, oh yeah, here they go. I'll try it now. Oh yeah, and then adjust as need be, add salt, call me in the morning.
Home is a feeling in the chest.
What's that?
Home is a feeling in the chest. That's yours, right?
No, that was not mine. I did read that though earlier.
Whose was it?
Oh, this was
in the book.
Sage
Yeah, I don't know who she is. I just read it like 2 hours
Yackelson.
ago.
And then she's here now.
This is called The Weathering. Bird parts, littered cement, like omens or gifts. Beak, talon, wing. She said the starlings let their babies die. Either the weathering of desire and erosion like so many daggered raindrops on beach sand, or the abrupt and disruptive thunderclap of an unrequited commitment. There is a dichotomy of beauty in letting a lover go that dances, dances, dances with ache. My heart in cracked ribcage opened wide in silence. What is this body made for but to harbor change? A vessel, sensations impermanent. The trees are prepping to scatter, while the rest of us are still in bloom. Thank you. So it's called Floating Away in Every Direction. Side of palm slides across page, gives illusion that words continue after stopping. How can such delicate abstractions, like lines on page or breath on ear, hold weight after release? Across the room, a light fixture hangs, suspended from chain in a bird cage. Everyone is looking at a computer screen. Why do we feel compelled to capture that which cannot be contained? No, our bodies are not our design. Perhaps that explains why sitting with stillness can be hard for you or anyone. Outside, the sky is falling monotonously. Until now, I never noticed how water droplets collected on windows reflect tiny upside-down likenesses of the world. Until now, I never noticed how love is a perpetual mix-up between a bridge and drowning and floating away in every direction. I haven't memorized this one yet. It's called And the Echoing. It's about gender and forgiveness and love and a lot of other things. It's a very loaded poem. 1. When I was a girl, my grandmother won the lottery. She took trips to Florida and brought me back gifts. A plastic toy alligator I played with in the bath, and a plastic baggie containing a starfish. The insert read, "Sea stars aren't really fish." And I dropped it, kicked it right under my bed where my cat, Zephyr, immediately dove and ate it. 2. From my great-great-grandmother I inherited the skull of a catfish shaped like a crucifix. When shaken gently there is a rattle of calcium stones in the hollows where the ears once were. I remember perching it upon a shelf in an empty bedroom next to the fragile emerald carapace of a dead cicada and part of a squirrel jawbone, teeth intact. 3. I dreamt of a past lover again last night. She pushed through a sea of people to get to me. She said, "Mine," and I glimpsed hunger in her teeth like a shark's as she smiled before she kissed me. I woke, sore cage rattled and bitten. 4. You recently asked me if I'd want to be a shark, using electroreception to detect nerve impulses, hearing low-frequency hums discharged by dying fish, or a dolphin, emitting sound waves from an organ called melon, teeth acting as antennas to receive the echoing back from the sea. And I answered dolphin, and you should know that yes, it is for pleasure, and it is also because you make my teeth pulse, and it is also because I've grown bone-tired of fishing blindly for heartbeats in open seas, no echoing. 5. The sea star has a vascular system of salt water rather than blood. Imagine what it must feel like to be completely filled with the very molecules that surround you. I have one more. This is my most recent poem. It's called Letter. Dear, I have become the bird washed up on Kehoe Beach, skin and feathers peeled away and visibly unzipped from back of bone, skull exposed, and beak in sand. I am the fish prize frantically wiggling in an osprey's talons after a dive, or a driftwood bench long ago embedded deep in the California sand. You are the heedless riptide pulling everything back out to sea. Signed, Thinking of You. Thank you.
Rosamella, the Nightingale. Marvelous. Magnificent, magical. I could go on with them words, but she'd probably get up there. All right. Now we have Sharon coming up here. Give her a nice round of applause. A beautiful voice. Voice of passion, compassion, and things like that. She doesn't like me bragging on her, though.
Okay. Keep it up.
Good response. Keep it up.
What was the word? Ache?
Ache, yes.
That's the word I gave last week? Ache?
Yes,
Okay.
that's why we credited to you with that.
Okay. You fear me and I ache for you. You fear the color of my skin. You jump at the sight of me. Your heart races when you seated next to me or standing by my side. I'm not in rags or snorting fire, making angry gestures. In fact, I am calm. I am yet older, and yet you feel so threatened, although I must admit, I'm a tough old bird, toughened by the rocks that have been thrown to me at life. And yet, if you were to break down, or to lose your way, it is I who you fear, who would come to your side, who would grab your arm, who would hold you to my chest and lead you into the light. This is the kind you like, this one. Okay. Gypsies live in storefronts. Running fast up the stairs, lots of little kids, crying, save me, yelling, running behind me. I make it to the door, and my grandmother's there. What's the matter? The gypsies are after us. Gypsies? What? Why? Where are they? They live in the Beacon store. They live in the store underneath the Beacon's building. Oh, no. Only a gypsy would live in the storefront. Just then, here comes my grandfather. Gypsies? Oh my God, they're going to steal the kids. Walker, sit down. No, they're going to steal the kids. They're going to sell them, and they're going to steal them. Walker, nobody wants these little Negroes. Sit down. Where's my address book? Walker, put the book down. He's on the phone. Hinch, they're coming to steal the children. Watch your wallet. Walker, put the phone down. Watch your grandbabies. This is it. They're going to steal all the kids. Walker, I said, put the phone down. Hang up the phone. Nobody is going to steal these little Negroes. Anyway, Roscoe, who lives 40 blocks away, has made it over to the house and there's a big powwow. All the guys from the lodge are coming over, and they are going to stop the gypsies from stealing the little Negroes. Next day, galoshes sliding, children running. I get up the steps, and there, standing in the yard at the top of it, is my grandmother on the porch, broom in hand. Uh-oh. What are you doing? She screams at the gypsy behind me. You little apes. You little apes are after us. You're throwing things in our store. Hey. You're not going to talk to them like that. They have to stop it. She says, I've talked to the neighbors. You're not touching these kids. You're not touching them. So he walks away and he mumbles. Next day, same thing, back from school. Only they aren't chasing us quite as fast. I get up the steps, and there they are, in the dining room. The silver tea set is out. The women have on hats, gloves, and furs. Furs with heads and tails on. And they are passing around a list, and it is wrong. I go to sleep, I go to school the next day, I know everything is going to be fine. And as I come home the next day, there's an empty sign on the Beacon store for rent. No gypsies. Fast forward, 1967. I'm out here and I'm having quite a great time. And I see an ad in Chronicle, storefront for rent, formerly owned by a photographer. And I moved there. So what do you think my buyer is going to say? Only gypsies get in storefronts.
That brings us to our mini feature of the evening, the inevitable. The penultimate, the peripatetic, the blasphemy. No, that's not a good. Clyde, away! Hit the minus of the thing. Hit the minus, go all the way out. Because this way we'll get him. We don't move around so dark much.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, come on, let's step right up, folks. Want to grab you some front row seat before the dawn, and they're going fast. You don't want to miss this. It's time for another exciting installment of the Clyde Always Show with me, Rose Clever, always handsome, always charming host. Yeah, Clyde always. And I ain't no common carnival barker. I am the Barn of the Lower Haight. And this is the tale of Mean Marvin.
Oh, I love this.
Once upon a time, there was a little boy with a scruffy ginger top and freckles all over his face. And his name was Marvin McMinahan, and Marvin was a mean. He was a downright vicious bully. He loved to smack the other little boys with skateboards and baseball bats, and the little girls, he'd stab them with pencils. He had a whole closet full of assorted knickknacks and bouncy balls and video games that he robbed or lifted from the other kids at school. Marvin was only 10 years old. But he was already the most hated person in his whole town, seeing as how he was such a miserable and sadistic little prick. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, maybe this Marvin kid had a bum deal. Maybe he had abusive parents or something, right? Unfortunately, I know this was not the case. Marvin's mother was a kind and loving homemaker. And Marvin's other mother was a mild-mannered architect. And even they were horrified of the son. They'd often curse under their breath. They'd say, honey, it must have been that lousy sperm donor. But I digress. It so happens that one summer day in a sunny corner of a secluded playground, Marvin was burning assorted insect victims under a magnifying glass. Because he loved to torture all things that could be described as puny, and most especially those which couldn't easily defend themselves, when all of a sudden out of the bushes came another little boy whom Marvin didn't recognize, but he saw right away that the boy was skinny and wispy and weak. So he dropped his magnifying glass, came running up, and the kid grabbed him by the scruff of his neck and shouted right in his face, "Give me whatever you got, you little runt!" Marvin had employed this tactic many times before, and it had always worked perfectly. So you can imagine his surprise when that little boy just stood there, stoic and brave, saying and doing nothing. Marvin raised his fist and growled, "Don't you hear me, shithead? You're gonna do what you got now, or I'm gonna knock all your teeth out and stick them on the back of my pillow tonight." But still, the little boy stood with his shoulders square and his chin held high and did not produce any bubble gum or lunch money. Marvin roared like a bear, and he stomped his feet and cracked his knuckles one by one. And that's when the little boy started to hum. And it hummed the most beautiful song, and it started out low, and it built, and it built, and it rose to the grandest of crescendos. In fact, it was the most perfect and ingenious musical performance ever delivered here on planet Earth. But the hard heart of Marvin McMinihan remained unmoved as his fist plowed right through that little boy's face, and then Marvin looked on in horror as the entirety of that little boy's body disintegrated into a massive, menacing cloud of bugs of all shapes and sizes and colors, bugs from all over the world. And they swarmed him and bit him and stung him and creepy crawled all over his face and his neck. Marvin screamed and pleaded and begged for help, yet through all of his desperate sobs and moans, no one came rushing to his aid, not a soul. And then soon the bugs all flew off in different directions, and big bad Marvin just sat there hugging his knees and sucking his thumb and weeping and blubbering to nobody at all. The next day, Marvin was late for school, but he arrived just in time for show and tell, and he was dragging behind him 2 gigantic black plastic sacks full of all the toys and the goodies he'd stolen over the years. And he returned them all one by one with a sound of sincere. And then, believe it or not, big mean Marvin McMinihan, he took his seat and he sat with folded hands, and he looked on attentive and polite and pleasant as one of his fellows stepped up to the front of the class for show and tell and said, "Hey guys, check it out, these are my Madagascar hissing cockroaches." And that's how Marvin's underpants went from clean to dirty. Thank you. Yeah, this is Jittery Jeff, the celebrity chef. We'll miss you. Oh, have a good Jittery Jeff, the celebrity chef. At the fanciest eatery ever there was, on a Saturday prior to service, while preparing, the staff were all shaken because they had reason to feel very nervous. Enter Jittery Jeff, the celebrity chef, who was famously vile and British. He could roar in your ear till he rendered you deaf, but his cooking was really quite shittish. One unfortunate cook over-roasted the lamb, so the chef came up shouting and shoving. Then he seasoned and trussed up that cook like a ham, and he stuffed the poor guy in the oven. When the pastry girl said that she felt underpaid as she idly fingered a booger, came the chef with a torch and her facey brulee, but neglected to add any sugar. And Sue, at the busiest part of the night, served a T-bone as tough as a fender. That's when Jeff went berserk on that raw piece of shite, and he hammered his testicles tender. All the servants complained in a furious mob that the chef was a mean evildoer. So old Jeff ran him through on a giant kebab with the maitre d' last on the skewer. In the dining room, diners impatient they grew, and so angry that hunger it made them. In response, complimentary liquor he threw before Jittery Joffrey flambéed them. All alone, then was Jeff in the barbecue pit, jamming cabbages into the juicer, and about to impale his own ass on the spit when there barged in his happy producer. "Well, the ratings are up," the producer exclaimed, "and I think I'm aware of the reason. All those innocent people you butchered and maimed, what a triumph. We'll see you next season." Tune into an all-new Jittery Jeff, the celebrity chef, this Saturday on the Food Network, 8, 7 Central. How much more time do I got? 4 minutes, holy shit. Please don't go anywhere. I won't go anywhere. More show coming up right after these announcements from Clyde Always Universe. Smutty Butt Kiss now available, $5 a pop. Will autograph. Yeah, it's a doozy. It is a doozy. So believe it or not, I've been doing some painting lately, and I've got an art showcase / performance with 2 of my friends as opening acts this Monday upcoming at the Czar Cafe. You're all invited, free show. And most exciting, if anybody's ever heard of Baby Gramps, I looked him up. He's been on Letterman. He's the real deal. He's an old vaudevillian kind of a guy, but I have been booked to open for the old guy, so I'm super excited. So if you want to come, you can get tickets. I got flyers right here. Sure, here, just pass them around. If you want them, feel free. And that's that. Anyway. Oh! This is a real puzzle. Get those craniums cranking. Oh, Daddy, please tell me why Grandpa is dead. Tell me why the embalmer has filled him. Could it be that a coconut fell on his head? Oh, Daddy, please tell me what killed him. Now, son, you can see his old noggin is fine. Your Gramps never went to the tropics. Look, it won't bring him back if we whimper and whine, so let's tackle some happier topics. Oh, Daddy, please tell me why Grandpa has croaked. Why is Grandpa all purple and bloated? I think maybe on crackers and cheese whiz he choked, and then all of his innards exploded. Now, son, you know well that your gassy old Gramps couldn't tolerate lactose or gluten. Would you kindly shut up before you give yourself cramps and cut out all your hollers and hooting? Oh, Daddy, please tell me why Grandpa's as stiff as a board and he never will soften. Was it poison or lightning or fall off a cliff? Tell me, how did he get in that coffin? All right, then I'll tell you, you dastardly turd. All your questions are dry to me. Look, what did your Gramps in was the shock he endured when he finally solved that Sudoku. That's a real record. Do I have any time left? I got 1 minute? Okay, I'm sorry, I gotta do it. This is Clyde always finishes what he starts.
Oh my God.
Okay.
One evening, barely midnight maybe, wifey asked with eyes alit, I wonder, could you, baby, eat my pussy for a bit? So chivalrous did I agree and smile warmly with my eyes, while coaxing moans out with my free hand, pressed my face between her thighs. She blossomed open like a lotus, squirming madly where she lay, as nibbling eye was scant to notice night had blossomed into day. Don't stop, she called, her breathing buckling. Yes, I answered, bowing meek, though sore my jaw I kept on suckling, never stopping all that week. I'm almost there, she kept insisting, bringing me about the tears, as down I bend my tongue a-twisting, better part of 20 years. Now never doubt a man's persistence, dying there upon that bed. I promised her I'd go the distance, I'd become the munching dead. They buried us with service feeding, causing but a meager fuss, while underground her was I eating, little worms were eating us. Then eons passed, our bones were lusty, skull to pelvis just the same, when flew apart from something dusty, finally she fucking came. Thanks everybody, tuning in.
No truer story was ever told by man. And now, I've been... Alan Harris, would you kindly come forth? And he is our super duper clincher closer bulldozer. I say that all the wrong. Clincher closer super duper bulldozer.
The gatekeeper.
The gatekeeper, the key master.
The key master. The key holder.
Seems like we got him. We're going to zoom in on this guy.
A lot of responsibility.
Word.
It's a lot of responsibility. And
This is the very first poem I ever wrote. Many years ago. Many brain cells ago. Recently, I wandered into a bad part of town where a group of shiny, bright white lights were holding a poker game in the shell of a burned-out tahini raincoat. And after losing all of my money to the shiny, bright white lights, I wandered into a cafe where, on a small stage in the back, a band called Cutlery on Prozac were doing their big hit, Stairway to Prozac. And after grooving on that tune for a while, I wandered into the men's room and did heroin with an apologetic homoerotic grizzly bear who laughed at everything I said. I awoke the next morning to find the beautiful blonde poetess that I loved standing over my futon. She emanated a shiny, bright white light, which took the form of a small child who gave me a cigarette. I set my desk on fire and was about to light up when my willpower sent over one of its thugs who tried to intimidate me, but instead tripped over one of the Janis Joplin commemorative Southern Comfort bottles which litter the floor of my apartment. So I smoked, and this sent me into a downward spiral. I became obsessed with small, dark spaces. I bathed in 30-weight oil. I set my dry cleaning to a psychic. I spent the first birthday that I've had in years alone. Cops began making appointments to arrest me. The internet crashed my rent party. My ex-suntan made long-distance phone calls to disease-ridden prostitutes and charged them to my phone. And all of a sudden, everyone became better than me. Finally, a couple of pockmarked brain cells invited me to an underground parking garage in the Sudan to smoke some weed. I opted instead for a solitary walk along a quiet beach, where I once again came upon the beautiful blonde poetess that I loved. She was drawing pictures of old boyfriends in the sand and crying. I knelt beside her and took her in my arms. Above us, seagulls formed a string quartet and played sweetly. Pollution took the day off. Fevers broke. Powerful men pinched their own asses. And for just a moment, no one, anywhere, used that phrase, "Why don't you go back where you came from?" Thank you.
Wow! Beautiful. So we have. I wanted to ask if you wanted to read because you're here and we have time, and I didn't know if you want. No. Did you?
Anybody?
Yes. Okay. And
Can I sing that?
yeah.
Woo!
I wanted to make sure everybody had a chance if they would like to. So.
Poets, attack.
Thank you. One of them Greek-speaking people. All right, so we're at the yes, we're at the part of the evening where